Good morning. It's Friday, February 20th, 2026. I'm Russell, and this is Rocky Road Devotions, a few minutes of help for today's journey. Our devotion today is entitled Freely, and our scripture is Matthew's Gospel, chapter 10, where my good friend the tax collector writes, Jesus sent out the 12 apostles with these instructions: Don't go to the Gentiles or to the Samaritans, but only to the people of Israel, God's lost sheep. Go and announce to them that the kingdom of heaven is near. Heal the sick, raise the dead, cure those with leprosy, and cast out demons. Give as freely as you have received. The following is an entry in my ministry journal over 25 years ago when serving as the aftercare director of a 17-location funeral home group, Hardage Giddens, Jacksonville, Florida. This past week, I buried a 90-year-old man. Auburn's wife had died years ago, and he had nobody in the world but his daughter to mourn him. As a young boy, Auburn had traveled with his evangelist grandfather. He knew the scriptures better than most. He heard the plan of salvation hundreds of times. He rejected Christ and his claims every time. As a young man, he traveled on business, drank, brawled, and caused as much trouble as he could. In his 50s, he married, but soon began to beat every member of his family in his drunken stupor. His wife divorced him, but she died a few years after. In time, Auburn had alienated everyone he'd known. In his mid-70s, Auburn had a stroke that incapacitated him. No one wanted this pitiful wretch, no one except Pat. Pat was Auburn's daughter, the one that he'd beaten and driven out of his life. Pat brought Auburn into her home, quit her job, and became his nurse. For a dozen years, she changed his clothes, cleaned and washed him, and gave him back rubs to ward off the bed sores. And the only thing Auburn could still do, he did. He cursed a blue streak. Auburn was not a blessing. I met Auburn and Pat in July of 1999. Pat knew that the end was near, and she called me to make arrangements for his funeral. A few weeks after, I received an urgent message to call Pat. When she answered the phone, Pat said, "Brother Russell, we almost lost him last night. He died on the emergency room table, and they brought him back twice. But this morning, he's made a rally. He's doing better, but I'm worried about his arrangements." I said, "Pat, we made all the arrangements. The funeral's all taken care of." Her reply, "I wasn't talking about the funeral. I'm concerned about his arrangements with God. Will you see my father and talk to him?" When I entered the hospital room, I expected a semi-comatose skeleton. Well, the man was haggard, but very awake. He looked right through me and he demanded, "You the preacher?" I nodded. And he continued, "My daughter Pat said you were coming. She's worried about me." And I asked him, "Sir, are you comfortable with where you're heading when the doctors can't pull you through again?" Auburn swore, and then he laughed. "No, man, that's why you're here. I need someone to help me." Well, I did my best to explain what it means to accept Christ. And in just a short time, Auburn, who now was obviously ready, was praying, asking for forgiveness, and receiving Jesus Christ as Savior. I met a hell-bound, needy sinner last July. I buried a saint last week. The point is, without 15 years of loving care extended to a pigsty Auburn, hell would be one resident fuller today. Auburn did not love his daughter. He couldn't. He didn't even love himself. Pat embraced this cursing, vile, miserable excuse for a man, brought him into her home, and lived the love of Christ for 15 years before Auburn J. Newsom would ever swallow his pride and surrender his heart to the Lord. Beloved, it costs to embrace the needy. It costs to be part of the house of mercy. for you today. There are lots of Auburns out there who many would categorize as a lost cause. And even if they don't know it, their hearts and perhaps failing bodies are simply waiting for the embrace of believers like Pat, who will put aside what the world thinks and simply give in the name of He who gave freely on the cross. You chew on that as you hit the rocky road. Have a blessed day.